Death, two words that resonate like a slow tolling bell, heralding the inevitable end of all living beings. In our minds, it often appears as an endless straight line, with no turns or stopping points. After centuries of research, science has shown that when life ends, when all biological functions sustaining the body cease, that is the irreversible point of termination. Notably, since 1968, when Harvard University's ad hoc committee defined brain death as the complete and irreversible loss of all brain functions, death has been clearly established in legal terms. According to them, this moment is the point of no return, where over 60 million people each year cross that threshold, leaving behind unfinished stories and loved ones in endless regret. But today, as I write these lines, a bold question suddenly flashes in my mind, and perhaps in yours as well: have we truly fully understood death? Irreversible. This question is not merely a dry mental exercise, but a journey, a long story that takes us through the wondrous discoveries of nature, the remarkable achievements of science, and even the blurred realms where reason and emotion intertwine. Let's begin this journey by facing reality: what we already know, what we don't yet know, and what may lie ahead. First and foremost, it must be clearly stated, death is not an abstract or vague concept. In science, death is defined as the complete cessation of all biological functions that sustain a living organism. The heart stops beating, the lungs stop breathing, the blood stops flowing. These are clear signs that anyone can recognize. But with the advancement of modern medicine, that concept has been refined and improved. Since the late 1960s, brain death has been recognized as the gold standard for determining human death. It's not just about the heart stopping, but when the entire brain, including automatic functions like regulating breathing or heart rate, completely ceases to function. This is not a coma, nor is it a vegetative state. According to a report from Harvard University, this is an irreversible ending. But within that seemingly irreversible decision, beneath its resolute tone, lies a small, almost imperceptible crack that few ever notice. It does not assert that death is irreversible in all cases. It can only be stated that, given the knowledge and technology available at that time, we were utterly powerless to revive someone who had suffered brain death. In 1968, when this report was published, the world had only a few dozen magnetic resonance equipment, MRE, units. Never heard of stem cells, let alone dared to dream of breakthroughs like gene editing or tissue regeneration. If we examine that definition from the perspective of modern science, what would happen? Is death an impenetrable wall, or merely a door for which we have yet to find the key? To find the answer, step away from the human world and turn your gaze toward nature, where death, it turns out, is not always the end. Imagine a tiny creature called Dundep, small in size but possessing extraordinary superpowers that leave everyone in awe. If you split its body in half, not just one but both halves can regenerate into two complete worms, each with a fully intact brain and all original functions. The axolotl is a unique amphibian species, capable of not only regenerating limbs but also regrowing parts of its brain after injury. These creatures do not see injury, even fatal injury, as the end, but rather as an opportunity to start anew. What makes them so special? The secret lies in regeneration, a process that science has been studying for decades. In flatworms, pluripotent stem cells enable them to regenerate any lost body parts. Regeneration is a complex mechanism involving cellular reprogramming, which allows mature cells to revert to a primitive state. This enables them to effectively regenerate tissues and organs. The experiment proved that when transplanting a salamander's head onto another body, it not only survived but also retained memories from its original body. These findings leave us with lingering questions. If memories, something considered to be deeply tied to the brain, can still persist after rebirth, then is the nature of the brain truly the final destination of consciousness? Go a little further to discover the octopus, an intelligent creature with a uniquely distributed nervous system. When an octopus loses a tentacle, it not only can regrow that tentacle but also can use the new one to perform simple tasks even before it is fully reconnected to the brain. This shows that information doesn't only exist in the brain but is also distributed throughout the body. If nature has shown that life can revive from seemingly insurmountable wounds, then why can't humans do the same? Returning to ourselves, Homo sapiens, creatures who pride ourselves on intelligence yet remain powerless before the fragility of human existence. The human central nervous system, particularly the brain, is nearly incapable of regeneration. When neurons die, the body cannot produce new cells to replace them. Just one severe injury or a few minutes without oxygen can cause a person to enter a state of brain death. This is why modern medicine considers brain death an irreversible milestone. But upon closer inspection, that picture isn't entirely filled with despair. Over the past few decades, scientists have discovered that the human brain possesses an astonishingly flexible capacity for change. In children and adolescents, this ability is even more robust, enabling the brain to reorganize and recover from injuries. In rare, though not yet fully scientifically confirmed cases, there have been documented instances of patients regaining consciousness after being declared brain dead, particularly when their bodies were kept alive with life support systems. The remaining neurons, the faint streams of blood still flowing through the veins, seem to whisper that death is not always as absolute as we believe. Let's travel back in time to the dawn of modern medicine. In the 20th century, when the defibrillator was invented, bringing someone back from the brink of death seemed unimaginable. Nowadays, that trick has become commonplace. What was once considered miraculous, heart, lung, and liver transplants, has now become reality. If 100 years ago, humans could revive clinically dead cases, who knows, perhaps in the next century, we might achieve the same for brain-dead patients. We are standing at the threshold of a new era. Regenerative biotechnology, with the support of stem cells and gene editing techniques, can now help us heal injuries once considered irreparable. Experiments on animals have proven that neural tissue regeneration is no longer a fantasy. For example, at Tufts University, scientists have applied bioelectricity to stimulate flatworms to regenerate their heads while preserving their memories. Meanwhile, some companies like BioQuark are researching methods to revive brain activity in brain-dead patients by combining biological peptides with neural stimulation. But beyond the capacity for regeneration, science raises a more fundamental question: is human consciousness solely confined to the brain? Research on microorganisms and single-celled organisms has demonstrated that even the simplest systems are capable of receiving information and adapting to their environment. If information, even memories, can be stored outside the brain, then brain death may no longer be the definitive end of human existence as previously believed. Now, the story enters a tense phase. If it were possible to reverse death, should we actually do it? On one hand, it is humanity's greatest aspiration, to conquer the final enemy, prolong life, and keep loved ones by our side forever. However, this also raises a series of ethical questions. Who will be chosen to return? How do we define life and death when the boundary between them grows increasingly blurred? And if consciousness is no longer tied to the body, can we still be considered human? If death is no longer the final boundary, if we can bring someone back from the realm of the dead to life, when their memories, personality, and consciousness remain intact, whether in part or in full, the very nature of their existence will be completely transformed. Throughout history, death has always been an inseparable part of the human life cycle. It is the driving force that helps us live to the fullest, love wholeheartedly, and find meaning in every fleeting moment of life. But if that boundary no longer exists, who would we be? One initial possibility is that we will become new versions of ourselves, people no longer constrained by the fear of death. Imagine the feeling of knowing that, even if an accident or illness strikes, there's a backup plan to start everything anew. No more shallow goodbyes, no more regrets over things left undone. Instead, life can be an endless series of fresh opportunities. But is that eternity truly a gift? Remember the story of Tithonus in Greek mythology. He was granted eternal life, but could not retain his youth forever. The ending was truly tragic. His body slowly rotted away with time, while his soul remained forever imprisoned in an immortal existence. If we reverse death but fail to overcome the aging process or other biological limitations of the body, are we repeating a similar tragedy in modern times? A world where humans are immortal but must live in decaying bodies and exhausted minds, is that truly what we desire? Another, more realistic scenario, is that the change occurs unevenly. Here are the natural English translations for your options. Like previous breakthroughs in medicine, from antibiotics to organ transplants, it may start as a privilege reserved only for the wealthy and the powerful. Imagine a world where billionaires, politicians, or exceptional scientists could extend their lives many times over, while others still have to face death as an inevitable reality that cannot be avoided. We are heading toward an unprecedentedly deeply divided society. The immortals have the ability to accumulate knowledge, wealth, and power over hundreds of years, while the rest of humanity lives and dies within the fleeting cycle of a human lifetime. Could this spark a revolution, as the forgotten demand the right to immortality? Will we witness the rise of a new superhuman class, those who deem themselves superior in both physical prowess and social standing? But perhaps the most significant change will come from how we define life's value. Now, death stands like a mirror, forcing us to confront the value of time and the deeds we have done. If there were no death, where would we find our motivation? Some may spend their entire lives exploring and creating endlessly, harnessing immortality to conquer new heights. However, there are also people who easily fall into a state of stagnation, lacking enthusiasm and a spirit of action. If everything could be endlessly postponed until tomorrow, a tomorrow that stretches on without end, what would drive us to wake up each morning? If death could be reversed, the key issue isn't just whether we can do it, but also, would the revived person still truly be themselves? Scientific research has proven that human memories and personality can be encoded in complex neural structures. But if we recreate a brain or restore its function after it has ceased to operate, will the inner consciousness and self return as they were before? Consider the case of flatworms. Although they have the ability to regenerate, their memories remain intact, yet they themselves are merely simple structured organisms. For humans, everything is far more complicated. A revived person may remember your name, recognize your voice, but does their heart still stir with love, fear, or joy as it once did? Otherwise, who will we become? People with familiar faces yet harboring alien souls. This opens up another possibility, the emergence of an entirely new form of existence. If consciousness does not solely reside in the brain, as some recent studies suggest, but instead permeates the entire body or can even be artificially replicated, we may evolve into hybrid entities. Partly human, partly machine, or even an entirely new form of life. We will no longer be Homo sapiens, but something entirely different, a new species with abilities and limits far beyond any imagination. So, who will we become when death can be reversed? Perhaps it is all of that and more. We may be explorers seeking immortality, survivors in a fractured society, or wandering souls searching for meaning in a world no longer easily defined. We can become a better version of ourselves, or remain shadows of the past, stuck in a reality we lack the courage to face. But one thing is certain, we will no longer remain the same as we are now. Death does not merely affect the body, it also shapes the soul, culture, and the way we express love. If it disappears, we will have to rewrite our own story, one where everyone is the author. What do you think if tomorrow I could cross the boundary between life and death and then return? At that moment, who would you want to become? Your answer may very well be the key to unlocking our future.